Okay, please proceed.
Good morning, members of the committee, city and Metrolink staff, and community members. Today we will be presenting Getting Hamilton's LRT on the Right Track, a project aimed at re-envisioning the B-Line LRT from a climate justice lens to deliver recommendations for future rapid transit planning and implementation in Hamilton. Our agenda today includes an introduction to the project team, the context, problem, and goals of the project, and how climate justice and equitable transit-oriented development were applied. This will be followed by our process, our 4 categories of research and findings with tangible recommended actions, and a wrap-up of key considerations or recommendations for Council and for Metrolinks. We are a team of 6 upper year students from McMaster and Redeemer who completed this project in collaboration with the Hamilton Community Benefits Network and CityLab Hamilton. CityLab is an innovation hub that brings together student, academic, and civic leaders to co-create a better Hamilton for all. My name is Isabella, and I will be presenting on behalf of the project team. We have Kiana, Diana, and Hannah in the stands. And I will be presenting with my colleagues Griffin and Simon. Both are long-term residents of Ward 1 and 5, respectively.
Thank you, Isabella. So our project was introduced given the need for greater social benefit surrounding the transit-oriented development associated with a project as large as Hamilton LRT. Transit networks are a fundamental part of any dense, modernly minded city, and the Hamilton LRT is a massive infrastructure commitment. As such, we need to consider its effects extremely carefully, as we will live without them, and we will live with them throughout our lifetimes. Our problem is that while the LRT project is innovative and future-driven, it has inadequately addressed various social considerations and environmental concerns, such as future climate adaptation, environmental damage, housing displacement, and gentrification. Our goal is to present research and tangible recommendations for the city and Metrolinks to consider for future transit developments. These are shaped by equitable transit-oriented development frameworks, or ETOD, as well as our climate justice lens. A key element of our report was to inspect LRT as a critical infrastructure development within the city, one that has a great potential to implement climate change adaptable and resilient infrastructure, as well as an opportunity to promote climate just ideals. Climate justice is a framework that seeks equity for all communities, recognizing that the effects of climate change disproportionately affect marginalized members of our communities, despite their relatively smaller contributions to greenhouse gas emissions. Functionally, climate justice manifests itself in the form of addressing structural inequities based on identity or income bracket, socioeconomic inequalities between municipalities or larger hierarchies, as well as intergenerational equity, which is something that we as students feel really strongly about. Focusing on climate justice also fits within the equity framework, which we propose and is represented here on the right-hand side of my slide. In a 2010 report titled Transit-Oriented Development Guidelines, the City of Hamilton presented that the LRT would deliver economic growth and stronger communities. We feel that these goals of presented transit-oriented development recommendations come from a middle-class urbanist perspective, which does not adequately and should consider the perspectives of low-income community members subject to the worst consequences of transit-oriented development. ETOD, or Equitable Transit-Oriented Development, places a large emphasis on equity and community supports that are most beneficial for all citizens of Hamilton. It considers the social as well as environmental implications of transit-oriented development and how they impact specific vulnerable communities. It allows for those underrepresented groups to mutually feel the benefits of LRT and rapid transit. Fundamentally, ETOD reinforces and aims for affordable, accessible, highly dense, mixed-use urban settings. We feel it is extremely important to address these needs and concerns. Unchecked, they represent the potential loss of city culture and identity, as well as terrible ramifications for large numbers of residents within the city. As part of our process, we collaborated with Carl and the Hamilton Community Benefits Network to determine community needs and where demands for equity are most being desired. Sorry.
Can you mute, please? Excuse me.
No worries. Additionally, we hosted a community engagement event of our own with students from McMaster, Mohawk, and Redeemer. This took place at McMaster University. The goal was to determine what future leaders and residents, those who will be impacted greatly by the effects of climate change, determined as the most important considerations for a city transit network that they would want to call home in future. Finally, we concluded secondary research and an analysis of other municipalities to determine our transit recommendations and actions. We published our findings in a formal 60-page report, as well as in a condensed 4-page community summary report, the latter of which provides the key points of our findings to easily inform others of our recommendations.
Okay, so we structured the ETOD model around 4 major pillars on key themes in our research findings and community engagement efforts to make recommendations that tackle a broad range of the most critical social and environmental impacts of Hamilton's LRT. The first is housing. This identifies affordability as a core need along transit corridors so that no person is excluded from the ability to live near public transit. Next is climate adaptation and resilience, which examines not only the need to plan for the costly impacts of climate change on public transit infrastructure, but also how transit riders themselves will be affected if climate support is not planned for. Connectivity and usage are interconnected elements that ensure transit systems get people where they need to go. The best transit systems in the world offer great connectivity to people, places, and all transport modes, which increase usage rates. And lastly, we have accessibility, which ensures all people have equitable access to transit from the very start to the end of their journey. We will now delve into some of our key findings surrounding these 4 pillars, along with tangible actions for Council and Metrolinx to consider to address each one. Regarding housing, the B-Line LRT runs through some of the most densely populated low-income neighborhoods in Hamilton, as you can see in the map on the slide there. This LRT will result in gentrification and the displacement of these low-income residents to cater to those of higher income brackets, which follows Hamilton's recent new housing construction trends identified in the Hamilton Community Foundation's 2023 Vital Signs report. As new transit developments increase property values and the potential for development opportunities, investments in affordable housing are needed to prevent these consequences, as adequate housing is essential for a community's health and well-being, according to CMHC. We recommend 4 tangible actions that can and should be taken to increase the amount of affordable housing along the B-Line LRT and future rapid transit corridors. The first is implementing an inclusionary zoning policy that requires developers to designate at least 25% of all new developments for affordable housing units to create mixed income neighborhoods. The second is ensuring developers use passive housing design in new residential buildings, which promotes the use of energy-efficient materials that will reduce operating costs in the long run. This keeps units affordable. An example is the Indwell McQuestion Lofts in Hamilton. The third is for the city to use land value capture to recover a portion of the increased land value resulting from infrastructure projects like the LRT. Land value capture can be a way to ensure that the public benefits from increases in land value capture rather than allowing private landowners to capture all these gains. Through this, the city can generate funds that can be directed specifically towards affordable housing initiatives. This can also look like potentially Metrolinx donating additional surplus land to the city to use for further affordable housing development. And the fourth is implementing firm affordable housing and tenant support policies for those displaced during construction. These policies can look like partnerships with nonprofit affordable housing providers and must have tangible targets, like adding 50% more housing units than what is currently there. Moving on to climate adaptation and resilience. In analyzing the 2018 Metrolinx Climate Adaptation Strategy, we found that it inadequately addresses adapting to the needs, health, and safety of transit users and communities during extreme weather events. While it does an excellent job of considering climate resilience for physical transit infrastructure, with key actions surrounding weather planning and monitoring and accounting for climate adaptation in their budgets, the only key action relating to health and safety is targeted towards transit staff and crew, rather than customers and community members. The same gaps are evident in Metrolinx's 2021 Sustainable Design Standards. As the frequency and intensity of natural hazards, extreme heat events, and worsening air quality grow, Hamiltonians need to be accounted for. Two tangible actions that can and should be taken on this matter include reworking transit design standards to emphasize considerations for community health, safety, and resilience to climate change, and prioritizing climate-adaptable and accessible green and built infrastructure. In practice, these look like utilizing green track beds, as seen in the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, keeping and replanting trees wherever possible along the corridor, and adapting LRT station designs from open-air stops to enclosed climate-controlled shelters, similar to the ones seen in the TTC access hubs in Toronto.
Thank you, Isabella. So now we move on to the next two pillars. For connectivity and usage. When considering Hamilton using a climate justice mindframe, LRT should not be the only mode of transportation looked at. As climate justice emphasizes the interconnectedness of social and equity problems, we realize that other lifestyle improvements related to infrastructure can help promote the benefits that come from LRT. By creating new green spaces and other public areas, residents will be more eager to head to the LRT area to enjoy Hamilton. However, limiting pinch points in the process will make it even easier by creating proper infrastructure around the system. At the community engagement event that we hosted, the biggest concern from attendees was the lack of connectivity to the LRT, mostly for cycling. A lack of protected bike lanes does not provide adequate protection from Hamilton's increasingly busy roads and the fear of not being able to store your bike during on-peak hours, which worries many residents. This is concerning as LRT's main goal is to get people to start living more environmentally friendly, and without giving them the chance to do so, the paradigm shift wanted by LRT organizers loses its emphasis. Therefore, these recommendations outline the need for further bike and walkable infrastructure surrounding the envisioned transit network. For accessibility, since the LRT project will affect everyone living near the Hamilton corridor, it is only fair that it is accessible to everyone, and that should be encouraged through its design and general awareness. As Hamilton's downtown wards have the highest disability rate in Ontario, lower income levels compared to the rest of the city, and people from various backgrounds, it is critical to consider the principles listed on the slide to encourage accessibility and usage. By using a gender-based analysis, framework is provided that can help see the gaps through the strategy to accommodate everyone. GBA Plus can do this by taking into account various factors surrounding age, gender, and income to determine adequate needs for what it is analyzing. This was done last year for the LRT in Edmonton and found that marginalized community members felt more comfortable using it at off-peak hours. Now, you might ask yourself, how will we even further accessible transit on the LRT in practice? We have proposed 3 recommendations based on our research. By incorporating other accessible modes of transportation, like DARTs, and subsidizing low-income individuals and students, the invisible barriers that these individuals experience daily have now been lowered. It is now possible for many to commute to jobs further away. A better well-being for seniors and people with disabilities knowing that assistance can be provided, and students now being able to explore Hamilton with less doubts about how to get to a certain area. This is why it is essential to consider accessibility when deciding which of the 4 models of privatization will be used at the next upcoming subcommittee. Finally, we have a couple overall overreaching key considerations. So to conclude, we urge that the City and Metrolinx place ETOD at the center of planning, designing, and implementing future transit developments, including the B-Line LRT. It considers the equitable and accessibility of transit for all residents and how the transit system can contribute to the city's climate adaptation efforts. Our 4 overreaching recommendations or considerations following this model that encompass all the actionable items we presented today for each of the 4 pillars demonstrate an overall view of all factors that ETOD could affect on Hamilton's re-envisioned transit system. The 4 main takeaways are listed above on this slide. Increasing affordable housing units along rapid transit corridors, implementing climate-adaptable public transit infrastructure to promote transit use and resilience, ensure connectivity between other modes of transportation and public transit systems in Hamilton, and last but not least, ensuring accessibility to all communities' physical needs, income levels, and identities. All in all, implementing equitable transit-oriented development using a climate justice lens will create affordable and inclusive neighborhoods for all. Thank you to City Lab for a great semester, as well as City Councillors, staff, and members of the public for allowing us to present today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Okay, I'm going to allow for some questions. If you don't mind standing for a little bit more, or I don't know, you have other folks, would they like to join you, or how are you going to field the questions?
Yes, the other members of our group can come down and answer questions if they like to as well.
Put them on the firing line, right? Thank you very much. So, Councillor Nan, were you on the speakers list? No?
I'm just going to test my audio. Do I still sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks?
You sound wonderful. You sounded wonderful before, just a little higher octave.
Awesome. Thank you for my council colleagues who encouraged me to reboot the entire system. I just wanted to say through you, Chair, thank you so much to the team who put together this research project. I think many of these recommendations are excellent and very clear. I honestly don't have any questions to the content of the presentation. My question, Chair, is a procedural one, so I'm happy to come back after colleagues who might have questions on the content have had a chance to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will recognize Councillor Kassar and then Member Andrus. Councillor Kassar.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. Enjoyed reading it and enjoyed taking in the presentation. You would have heard me in the last presentation ask about land value capture, because your presentation kind of intrigued me, and I did some research on that. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on A, other examples that you've seen of land value capture, and then B, what we can potentially do in Hamilton on this topic. Through you, Chair.
Thank you. Whoever is going to answer, if you could just make sure you're in front of the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Chair. I will not claim to be an expert on this topic. It is something that we looked into because we know governments around the world typically use this method. There are several different ways that land value capture can be used by governments. Land banking is one of them. Taxation is another form of doing that. What may work best in Hamilton is not really something that I know too much about, but we did bring it up as something for city staff to consider in their planning for the LRT. We think it is a very important thing that can ensure affordable housing units are created. So just something to bring to the forefront and bring to the attention of city staff.
Yeah, no, thank you. Fair enough. Definitely some more work to be done there. I had a second question on the climate adaptation and resilience recommendations. I was wondering if you could just dive a little deeper into your first recommendation, rework trend as design standards to emphasize considerations for community health, safety, and resilience to climate change. The presentation is very high level, and there were some quick comments, but wanted to give the opportunity to elaborate on that if you'd like, please.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. Again, through your chair. So that statement had to do with the sustainable design standards and the climate adaptation from Metrolinks that were developed in in 2021 and 2018. So as we mentioned, many of the key actions and things that were written in those reports have to do with resiliency to the climate crisis for specific transit infrastructure rather than the health and safety of community members. There was one key action that targeted specifically for health and safety, but it was for transit crews. In terms of if there was an extreme weather event, how would they be? What would be the actions they would take, and what would happen to the transit system as a whole? So we do think that it is important for specific targets and actions for community members to be implemented into those design standards to address the climate crisis. And that is particularly why one of our recommendations had to do with enclosed climate-controlled bus and LRT shelters, because that is climate planning for the community and considering the transit user journey and how transit users will be impacted by extreme weather events.
Thank you very much for that. Those are all the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Andrus, please.
Yes, thank you. Again, I really want to thank you guys for your hard work this semester and partnering with us. I also want to thank city staff for working along with the Climate Change Office, who was also partnered with City Lab. I want to thank the instructors at City Labs for participating and guiding the students through this journey, and also through councillors previous and current who continue to fund the City Labs program through the partnerships that they've built with the City of Hamilton. A couple of quick questions. In your talking about station hubs, building on the other members through the chair's point, I noticed that there were 16 stops that you mentioned. Did one of you know what those 16 stops cost approximately for delivery?
Yes, through the chair. Those 16 stops cost about $17.4 million. Pre-pandemic prices, yeah.
And those were enclosed climate-controlled stops?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other comment that you made very briefly, I wanted to talk about in terms of that multimodal connectivity, was the concept of bicycles, and something that I guess came out of your engagement sessions. Can you talk a little bit about what that was?
Yes, sure, I can talk about that. Through the chair, so through City Lab, we had to perform a community engagement event. We did that with students at McMaster University, and for the scope of the project, we didn't really have much other time to really talk to any other community members, so we just decided to really focus in on students for that. So when doing the boards and when really looking at that, we saw that a lot of students, and it wasn't just all students, there was a lot of other community members there as well, luckily, is that they were trying to really what they really saw is that LRT was not connected to any other transport systems. And a lot of people in that Westdale, McMaster area and through the overall city like using their bikes to connect to public transport. So if there is not really much connectivity, then it's very hard to access the LRT, and with that comes usage problems and an overall paradigm shift, which I mentioned in the presentation about trying to get people to use more public transit instead of more cars on the road, which really hurts with climate justice and overall traffic. So by having a healthier and safer Hamilton, we feel that adding bike stations, protected bike lanes, will really help affect LRT with usage and just an overall health standpoint in the city.
Thank you very much. And I believe the report also mentioned specifically bike storage lockers and concerns around theft. My last question is not really a question so much as a comment. You talk about land value capture and the need for affordable housing. At the General Issues Committee last week, a staff report came forward around 171 Main Street East, which had designated that property for sale for private use as opposed to the construction of affordable housing on that land, specifically being prime downtown land. So can you really, especially given that your students comment on the gross need for affordable housing, both student and across the housing continuum, and really kind of give us a sense from your own personal experiences how dire that need is?
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, through the community engagement event that we posted, as well as other data sources that we've looked at supplied by the HCBN, as well as just ones that we've pursued on our own, housing affordability is consistently basically identified as the top priority of most citizens. This is something that all students are feeling very presently as well. I think on the boards that we did, there was near unanimous decision that everyone identified housing affordability as a key prioritized interest. So in the reference of 171 King Street East, I think I speak on behalf of everything of the community engagement and our findings there that, yeah, that is a dire need for the community.
Thank you. No further questions. And again, I appreciate all of your hard work and thank you for taking brave. I remember the first time I stood in front of this council and I was not nearly as eloquent all those years ago. So thank you again for presenting to us and for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, thank you. Some of us are still working on it. I'm going to come to Councillor Nan in a minute, but if I could ask Councillor Danko to assume the chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you could expand on the reference to a gender lens. I'm not quite sure I understand why and what you meant. Thank you.
So in Edmonton, a lot of the issues that they were having were around crime, safety, and security. And when they researched more into why that was happening, they found that it was a gender disparity. Mostly women were feeling unsafe, and the people that were causing it. So they looked into solving those issues and seeing what those recommendations from the community members experiencing the issues actually had to say, rather than just putting more lights in or having more seating options, more cameras. So yeah, they found the people who were experiencing the problem and they solved it through it.
Thank you. So they communicated with the users and involved them in the problem solving identification? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'll assume the chair. Thank you, Councillor Danko. I will look to Councillor Nan, who I believe you had a procedural question, but I'm not sure. Please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And just I'm mindful when we have presentations that it doesn't necessarily come with direction. So if it's appropriate, I would like to refer this presentation back to staff. There are some items in the recommendations that are outlined that I do believe the municipality is working towards, and I think it would be useful for this committee to see a list of those recommendations that are already in progress versus those that this committee might be able to consider as the presentation intersects with our overarching city priorities around climate action.
Thank you. So refer back in consideration of, I'm seeing a nod also from the front bench. Councillor, is that a good interpretation, Councillor Nan, if you could affirm, and then I'll recognize Councillor Critch.
Certainly, and I've sent language over to Elsie McIntosh as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Elsie McIntosh, do you have the language? And if you could put it up, and then I'll recognize Councillor Critch. Did you wish to speak to it or second it? I wasn't sure.
Just going to second it. I think it's a great idea to get a report back from staff on this important report.
Thank you. I don't know if we need to see the language. I think there's an understanding of the direction. So it's been duly moved and seconded. There it is right there, that staff be directed to review the presentation and report back to this committee with what recommendations, what actions the city is already active on, and if there are additional recommendations for this committee to consider. Okay. If we can have a vote on that, please. Vote is up.
Councillor Nan?
Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. That carries 6-0. As the chair, I'm going to take the prerogative. I think it's really important for young residents and citizens to practice this. So if I could ask you to say your name into the mic, because you each haven't had an opportunity, so that you can say your name, you can hear your name, and we can hear your name. And then I thank you very much.
My name's Kiana Craig.
My name is Diana Smano.
My name is Simon Batusik. I am a Ward 5 resident.
My name is Hannah Horlings.
My name is Griffin Kinsey, and perhaps I'm pandering, but I'm a Ward 1 resident.
I mean, I know I introduced the presentation, but I'm Isabella C. Post. Thank you.
And which ward are you in?
I'm living in Ward 1. Now I go to McMaster. So.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all very much for your attention and your time. It's been very helpful, and I hope as you continue your studies and your life that you'll pay attention to and lean into your responsibilities, and with a particular focus on local government, because it is the most rewarding level of government in which to attend to. Thank you. Okay, we can receive that report as amended.
We need to receive the presentation.
Receive the presentation, beg your pardon.
Do we have a mover and seconder?
Oh, moved by Councillor Casara, seconded by me. Thank you. Councillor Nan? Got it? Yep, thumbs up. Thank you. That carries 6-0. We're on to consent items. 9.1, Hamilton Light Rail Transit Community Benefits Update. A mover and a seconder to receive this report, and then we can...
Can we go back and receive the report?
Oh. To receive the report. It's moved by Councillor Casara and seconded by myself. Thank you. Always keeping me on track, Elsie McIntosh. Get that? On track? Da-da. Thumbs up from Councillor Nan. Thumbs up from Councillor Danko.